I'm Kevin Cirilli. It's time for the Daily Debrief. Let's get right to it. Democratic mayors are increasingly pressing President Biden and the federal government for help on immigration. New York City Mayor Eric Adams told reporters that the Big Apple needs much more federal help to deal with the massive influx of migrants coming to the city. Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott has aggressively sought to slow down the influx of migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border through his state, including busing an estimated 80,000 migrants to other states since last year.
We cannot allow buses with people needing our help to arrive without warning at any hour of day and night.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Mexico meeting with Mexico President Andrés Manuel López Obrador to discuss ways to stop the border crisis. Here with the latest is The Hill's Rafael Bernal. Rafael, thanks for joining us. Democratic mayors now, like Eric Adams from New York City, they're urging President Biden to do more on immigration. But what more can he do?
Well, he could coordinate, for starters. I think that's the big demand that they've had. And really what's surprising is that it's taken the mayors so long both to ask for something that's specific, just coordinate, tell us when people are coming so we can make plans and give us funding, of course. There's always funding. And to take action against the busing from Greg Abbott. I think a lot of immigrant advocates will approve of what Eric Adams is doing and really just asking for a little coordination, knowing when the buses are coming, making sure they show up in daylight hours, just very basic things that hurt Greg Abbott's political benefits he gets from this program and help them actually coordinate the migrants arriving to their cities.
Well, put the border crossings in perspective for us, because we hear all of these numbers, 80,000, nearly 500,000 who have been placed back to their country of origin by immigration officials. So how much of an increase are we seeing, are we witnessing? Where does this compare with years past? And what's the forecast for next year?
So 16 of the last 24 months, we have seen more than 200,000 encounters between Customs and Border Protection and migrants without prior authorization, whether they're just like trying to cross and sneak into the country, or like the majority cross and request asylum at either a port of entry or between ports of entry. That number, it really is a lot. It reflects a very large movement of people. It reflects a big change in how migrants can get to the United States and where they're coming from. First, the migrants were mostly from Mexico for many decades. Then Central America joined Mexicans and around the Obama administration. And over the past 10 years, we've seen a steadier flow. So it is a very large migration phenomenon. There's no doubt about that, and there's full agreement on that. Now, the other point is, are 200,000 people a month or 200,000 encounters a month more than the United States can handle? And that question obviously is debated. It is currently more than the Border Patrol can handle in terms of just processing these people. And that's part of why President Biden wanted more funding in a supplemental that ultimately didn't happen. But the U.S. economy is also demanding more workers. So that question's up in the air. But without coordination, it's really difficult to answer the what happens the day after they come question.
Well, and now, according to the Democratic mayors, it's not up in the air. You have Mayor Adams, you have the leaders of these major Democratic cities who are saying that the federal government has to do more, that the commander-in-chief has to do more on immigration. And when you look at the politics of this, polls suggest, and I was just in the Decision-24 crosstabs, polls are suggesting now there has been a seismic shift in terms of public sentiment on immigration, particularly amongst moderate voters from the summer of 2015, when we first heard Trump say, build a wall, to where we are now. So what impact politically is this having on moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans, Rafael?
You're exactly right. It's moving a lot of moderate voters. It's turning them off from immigration, people who would normally welcome migrants. But it's really that chaos at the border, the lack of resources, the chaos after the border in the way migrants are distributed through the United States. There simply doesn't seem to be a plan. There really isn't a plan that's being affected. And you're right, the political consequences aren't good for President Biden, aren't good for Democrats, and they're terrible for migrants who, under other circumstances, might come here and might be welcome to receive a job or just receive safety of being in the United States, and now are sort of embroiled in probably the biggest political fight that we're going to see coming up to 2024.
One word answer, yes or no, before I let you go. Congress will enact major immigration reform legislation in calendar year 24.
No, probably.
There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. Rafael, Bernal, excellent reporting. Thank you so much for breaking all of that down for us and putting it in perspective.
Thanks for having me.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken will head to the Middle East as the U.S. continues an effort to contain the Israel-Hamas war from spreading further in the region. There's growing concern that Israel's military operation in Gaza will spread closer to Iran, in Lebanon, or the Red Sea. The Gaza Health Ministry said that 50 Palestinians were killed earlier during Israeli airstrikes, bringing the total death toll above 20,000 lives lost. The AP is reporting that the war has driven 85% of the Palestinian population of 2.3 million people from their homes. Washington and the international community have now been more vocal about pressuring Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to contain the conflict. It's time now for our daily update from the Decision Desk 2024, where we're tracking all of the latest news and polls from the campaign trail. Republican presidential candidate Chris Christie is betting it all on New Hampshire. The former New Jersey governor is flooding the Granite State's airwaves with a new ad buy, defending his decision to stay in the race.
Some people say I should drop out of this race. Really? I'm the only one saying Donald Trump is a liar.
But let's dive into the Decision Desk crosstabs here, because when we focus specifically on New Hampshire, Christie is polling at 11%. That is significantly behind Nikki Haley, who's also betting it big on New Hampshire, mind you. She's at 26.7%. And then you've got the frontrunner, former President Donald Trump. He's managed to keep his lead amongst the poll of polls, and he's at 43.7%. Haley, meanwhile, is facing mounting criticism today for her response to a question at a New Hampshire town hall when she was asked about the cause of the Civil War, and she didn't mention slavery.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do.
Now, slavery, of course, was the cause of the Civil War, and she has since gone on New Hampshire radio, local radio, to clarify her remarks. A lot can change between now and the January 23rd primary. Most notably, there's an Iowa caucus a week before. But Trump's legal battles continue to move forward, as does his presidential campaign. In Maine, Maine officials are now weighing whether to boot him from the state's ballot, taking a similar approach to Colorado. But the Trump campaign has learned to embrace the political fights as part of its messaging strategy, and they're arguing that it's the latest example of political forces trying to keep him from ever returning to the White House. And that doesn't mean Republicans aren't worried about Maine, because Maine does matter. It's one of only 2 states, remember this, the other state being Nebraska, that are not winner take all in an electoral college. So when you have a close election in the electoral map, every single electoral vote counts, even one from Maine's 4 electoral college votes. So that's why this is increasingly going to matter, and why you're going to hear a lot more about Maine in the upcoming news cycles. But what do you think? Do you think Trump will appear on all 50 state ballots in a general election matchup if he's the nominee? I want to know what you think. Leave me a comment below and tell me about what you think of all these efforts around the country to remove him from the ballot. And remember, you can track all of the latest polls at Decision Desk HQ and check it out at elections2024.thehill.com. Democratic Senators Richard Blumenthal and Ed Markey want Elon Musk to recall Teslas. There's a recent Reuters report that exposes Tesla allegedly knowing about safety issues with steering and suspension parts, and Musk's company's attempt to keep it hush-hush. Adding to the drama, the report suggests Tesla pointed fingers at customers for the problems. Elon Musk is pushing back vigorously, flatly denying all of the allegations, and Tesla took to Twitter to combat the narrative, labeling the article wildly misleading and highlighting incomplete, incorrect information. I want to know if Musk is going to return to Capitol Hill to testify publicly. Stay tuned. That's it for today's Daily Debrief. My name is Kevin Cirilli. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.